With us right now to talk a little baseball and beer like he does each and every week is Jay Jaffe, although this week he's on location from the Cape, or he's vacationing with his family right now and working from home remotely. All right, Jay, great to have you back. Let's make our listeners jealous as we start the show. Tell everybody what the weather is like right now for you out there in Cape Cod.
It's 72 and partly cloudy right now here at about 6 o'clock, 6:20, whatever we're talking about. It's maybe got into the mid 70s today. It's just it's rained on us a couple times, but I don't think anybody there is going to have any sympathy for that. Wish I could send some of this nice weather your way.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's 99 here, and it's hot as hell. By the way, how far are you from the water right now?
There's a marsh that's a few hundred yards away here. I'm about a 5 to 7 minute drive from the beach.
Oh my God! All right, so yeah, there it is. Get jealous. I'm jealous. 5 to 7 minutes from the beach. He's got a marsh near him. He's good. We have how far, AJ? How far are we away from the lake? We got actually we've got Ascarity, which is about 25 minutes away. All right. So we got a lake about 25 minutes away. Not so bad.
Is it boiling?
Yeah, it's boiling. Yeah, exactly. You would not recommend being out there right now. That's for sure. All right, let's get it started. You wrote about Tyler Glasnow's injury, and ultimately, it's been a tough blow if you're a Rays fan since he goes down with a partially torn UCL. Were you surprised when he went on record and ripped MLB, blaming them for the injury and ultimately saying it's because he stopped using sunscreen on gripping a baseball that forced him to ultimately get hurt?
Yeah, a bit of a surprise. I mean, look, I think you put any athlete in that position, and there's going to be a lot of emotion and frustration there. You're talking about a guy who, at the very least, might be done for the season. Quite possibly might be done into next year, and is frustrated because he feels like he's not one of the more egregious offenders when it comes to using grip enhancing substances. By his own account, he's used the sunscreen and rosin, which I think until recently was pretty widely accepted as a grip enhancing substance within Major League Baseball. A lot of pitchers using it. It's not the really sticky stuff, the spider tack that you can palm a cinder block with. That's not demonstrably boosting the RPM, the speed of the spin rate on your fastball by a few hundred RPM, and making it do obscene things. So I understand this frustration, and I think if you listen to the whole conversation, he qualified some of it. There was some nuances to it. Obviously, his blame of MLB. I mean, I think he's a little bit more careful in terms of the way he parses it there. But the whole clip is worth listening to. If you go to fangraphs.com, you can see it. You can also see my several hundred words worth of transcription there.
I agree with the fact that you shouldn't just suddenly change the rules in the middle of the season. I think that's the biggest issue here, is that suddenly it's like Major League Baseball decided, well, we need to ban all substances completely after the story that Stephanie Epstein broke in SI.com a few weeks ago, and what's kind of led to this whole thing. Plus, I mean, sunscreen, like you said, has been accepted. And before that, you used rosin and water. That was the big thing to try to get a grip. So you kind of say to yourself, well, does sunscreen really give you that much more of a competitive advantage throwing a baseball than, let's say, the typical, I don't even know what they're using now to try to grip a bat. I mean, you look at baseball bats. Remember the old days when George Brett was given too much pine tar and ultimately they ruled his home run and out he went nuts. Now look at what baseball bats have and look at the amount of pine tar all over them and on batting helmets and everything else. Who knows what other substances on there, but that's okay. So it almost seems like there's still a lot of gray area in all this stuff, Jay.
There is, and Major League Baseball has once again let it get to the point where by not enforcing the existing rules on the books, players have taken liberties. We have seen this time and again. We saw it with the performance-enhancing drug situation in the 90s and 2000s. We saw it with the use of electronic technology to steal signs. And we're seeing, history repeats itself. Major League Baseball has a track record of not doing a very good job of enforcing the rules on its books. Then a crisis pops up, and it does a bad job of taking its own accountability, for this problem, and instead it becomes a finger pointing contest, and a few high profile players get cast as the villains and the most egregious offenders, and once you get them to back off, it's like, oh, problem solved. And I don't think that's whether it's Glasnow or just to use names that have been thrown out in the media, Garrett Cole, Trevor Bauer, guys like that. It's not nailing individual pitchers on this does not solve the problem, and the problem is still Major League Baseball pitchers feel like they need to do something because the surfaces of the ball, they feel the ball is too slick. There are a lot of grumblings over the way that the balls are rubbed down with mud, that it's inconsistent. Some teams have, and this is reported recently in Andy Martino's book Cheated, but some people feel that that the home team is getting differently rubbed up baseballs than the visiting team. This is actually something that the Rays have complained about before. Glasnow, in some of his comments, talked about inconsistently rubbed down baseballs. And so, that's why that's part of the reason why these pitchers feel like they need something. And also, obviously, when the cost of missing is a home run, it becomes an arms race. Pitchers are going to do what they have to do. Hitters are going to do what they have to do. And you've got a situation that needs to be tamped down.
Jay Jaffe with us here on Sports Talk as we continue talking baseball this segment. I did find it interesting that Glasnow mentioned that when he was using sunscreen and rosin, he said he could grip a baseball like an egg. That was how he talked about it. Now he said he's got to grip that ball so hard, feels like he's squeezing the daylights out of it. There's nothing left. And ultimately, it's caused what he thinks is just to compensate for things that could have led to an injury. Now, I wonder, if everybody has been using some kind of substance the way Glasnow was, and now they've all got to change it, something weird could happen here, because not every pitcher is going to be able to adjust properly, whether their numbers are going to go up or they're not going to have the same kind of control they've had before. It is going to be interesting when pitchers suddenly realize they just can't do what they have been doing these last few seasons and expect to get away with it as baseball starts cracking down.
Yeah, and we've already seen pitchers. Some of the prominent pitchers that I just mentioned there. Their most recent starts, they were down a couple hundred RPM. They gave up 3 or 4 runs. They got knocked around a little bit. Seems like there's a lot of that going around right now. As pitchers, I think maybe dial back, and they're searching in mid-season here to try to figure out what's going to work and still be allowable.
More with continuing our conversation right now. We've got Jay Jaffe with us. He is on location from the Cape. In fact, Jay will take next week off since his vacation officially kicks in, which means we'll pick it back up 2 weeks from today with Jay. But want to get back to our conversation that we've got right now. I noticed that it's been a rough season for Cody Bellinger. Just comes back, goes right back on the IL with a hamstring issue. The Dodgers are hoping it's a short-term thing. But Muncy's on the DL right now, Jay. Now you've got Bellinger on the DL. Dodgers having to deal with some adversity right now with some of their big bats that are out.
Yeah, they're lucky that they've got a bit of a soft patch in their schedule right now. Mookie Betts has started to pick it up. He had a big home run last night. He's had a couple big home runs in the last couple of weeks. I was actually in the process of working on a piece about him before, when the Glasnow news came down, and so I kind of put that on the back burner. It's kind of tough to make the case that Betts has really turned a corner yet if you're looking at the numbers, especially the underlying metric, the analytics stuff. But they're going to need him to do his part in carrying the load. Fortunately, they've got a deep lineup. They've got a deep offense. I mean, look, the Albert Pujols experiment has worked. He's been mashing left-handed pitching, for example, and that hitting about as well as he has in quite a long time within that limited role. They're just going to need guys to step up, and on the pitching side as well.
Speaking of hamstring injuries, tough break for the White Sox. Nick Madrigal is out for the season after having surgery to repair some tendons that he tore in his hamstring. Madrigal has had a terrific season this year. He's done exactly what everybody thought he would do. Hit for a high average, lots of contact, very little power, but on a roster that's been near the top of the AL all year, the White Sox, Madrigal's been an important piece, and it's going to be interesting to see with guys like Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert also out, and Jimenez for at least the next month still out, how the White Sox will be able to cope without a guy like Madrigal.
Yeah, I mean, his Madrigal has certainly played a part in the team's success. I think the news that Eloy is making a quicker than expected recovery from his ruptured pectoral tendon, I think, kind of offsets some of that. They'll have the problem of trying to figure out how to fit that lineup together, because Yermin Mercedes has kind of cooled off, and Eloy's got liability in left field, and there's things to juggle there. But the White Sox are generally playing good ball. They'll with the trade deadline upcoming, they can go out and get a second baseman if they need to fill Madrigal's shoes.
I like the story you wrote earlier in the week about Shohei Ohtani being a legitimate MVP candidate in the American League because of what he's done both as a pitcher and as a DH this season for the Angels. And really, when he's been healthy, it's fun to watch because he throws 100 miles an hour and he can also hit a ball about 400 plus feet. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, he had such a miserable season on both sides of the ball last year. Only two outings on the mound, and then a flexor strain that wiped out his season. That was his first year back from Tommy John surgery, and then he hit below 200 batting average, and I think it was an 82 WRC plus, 18% below league average as a hitter. Has come back this year, has been one of the AL's top hitters, near the top in home runs. I think second only to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. when I wrote about that. And on the mound, he's been an above average pitcher, not a Cy Young candidate, working generally 5 innings at a time. Had some control problems early, 19 walks in his first 18 2/3 innings, but that's leveled off. He's been pitching very well lately, and it's going to be, right now, it's shaping up to be a very interesting MVP race between him and Guerrero, who was leading the Triple Crown categories and in wins above replacement. It's recalls the Mike Trout Miguel Cabrera race from 2012, except Guerrero's defense isn't sinking his value the way that Cabrera's did, and leading to a old school, new school type argument.
Talking baseball with Jay Jaffe here on Sports Talk. You have teased on the show the last few weeks that Baseball Reference was getting ready to launch their expanded coverage of the Negro Leagues, and they did just that. In fact, you wrote about it, launching the major overhaul of Negro Leagues coverage. There's a lot here, Jay, and in your article, you kind of mentioned it. Tell me this much. Have you had a chance to dive into it a little bit yet? And what do you think this will do for baseball historians like yourself that really will get a much better look at just how great these Negro League ball players were?
Yeah, in December we saw that Major League Baseball decided that that by its own ruling that the Negro Leagues, these 7 specific Negro Leagues from the 1920 to 1948 period, that it would consider those major leagues. The tone of how they did it was a bit off, unfortunately, but Baseball Reference had been working behind the scenes to incorporate Negro League stats into its offerings, to put them on the same level as present them on the same level as it did the other major league offerings. They worked closely with experts in black baseball, many of them black themselves, including Larry Lesser, who's probably the preeminent black baseball expert, a co-founder of the Negro Leagues Museum, and just an outstanding researcher, won numerous awards for his work. And the descendants of the Negro Leagues families, including Sean Gibson, who's the great-grandson of Josh Gibson. I had the privilege of beta testing the site before it went live. I had some comments on it. What they've captured is, I think it's educational. I mean, the Negro Leagues teams did not have the luxury of playing 154 or 162 game seasons. They had to do a lot of exhibitions and a lot of barnstorming, and they held their own against the white major league teams. But those games don't count in their league games. So we're talking about their league stats. you're talking about 50 to 70 game seasons. But what they've done is go back and recompile that. They've got 72% of the box scores from the 1920 to 1948 period. Some years as high as 95 to 99% of the box scores. And we can put that data on the same scale as we can the white major league data, and it's fascinating to see how well guys like Josh Gibson and Oscar Charleston and Willie Wells and Cool Papa Bell stand up to the measures that by which we measure greatness in the white majors of the day.
I wish there was more data from those exhibition games. I know they didn't count, but it would be great to see how some of the great Negro League ball players fared against those the white Major League ball players when they were playing those head-to-head games.
Yeah, if you go to seamheads.com, you can see some of that data. That has not been brought to the Baseball Reference site. I think in time it will be, but it's they're trying to focus right now on the league data, which is the meat of these guys' careers. And it's fascinating. I mean, for example, Josh Gibson hit for a 215 OPS plus, and Oscar Charleston a 184 OPS plus. The Charleston had enough plate appearances to qualify for the site's leaderboard, and he's third behind Babe Ruth and Ted Williams in the playing time we've got. This is a guy who was basically Willie Mays before Willie Mays. And black baseball experts will tell you that he really, was this incredible power speed combination, and quite a player to behold. So this is really cool stuff. There's essays on the site that explain how the data was gathered and how these leagues worked, and kind of a timeline of where it went. They really put together a very professional and well-considered package that I think avoided some of the pitfalls that Major League Baseball had when it made its announcement in December.
You can follow Jay Jaffe on Twitter at J_Jaffe. Check out his great work at Fangraphs.com. Let's wrap it up. Beer pick of the week. What would you like to profile for our listeners this week, Jay?
Okay, this is Fiddlehead IPA from the Fiddlehead Brewing Company in Shelburne, Vermont. This is a great IPA. I went back for more. 6.2% ABV. It's a New England style IPA, hazy, but it really puts forward the kind of the West Coast flavors that we like, and the grapefruit, the pine, a little bit of resin in there. Really drinkable. 6.2%. It went down so easily. Again, I went back for more. I just was so impressed with this beer. Definitely one of the ones I think I'd had this 2 years ago at a restaurant, and this is the first time I'd seen it in cans, but it's readily available here.
How is the beer selection for you where you're at, especially some of those hard to find micro brews that I know you've grown accustomed to enjoying that you just can't get in New York and other places?
Yeah, there's a good variety at the couple places that we go. Freshness is an issue. I've become kind of finicky about checking the dates on things and wanting to buy fresh IPAs, and that can be a challenge here, especially when we're not in peak season yet. In this area, so some of this beer has been sitting on the shelves for a bit longer than you'd like. But there are some very good brands here. My main complaint is these places are only open till 7 o'clock, so I got to think far ahead if I'm going to go out and buy more beer.
I hear you. Well, listen, drink more beer, enjoy the vacation, and we'll look forward to checking back with you in a couple of weeks when you return back to New York.
All right. Sounds great, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.